Warning, the following contains spoilers for Metal Gear Solid. Metal Gear Solid, the game that needs no introduction. Notable for its innovative gameplay, outrageous anime-level boss fights, complex storyline, and a captivating presentation and style that would go on to influence so many modern AAA games while also pushing the boundaries of what the medium is capable of. All that acclaim for a game that came out in 1998 and looks like this. No hate to the visual style, I actually love it for atmospheric reasons. It's just crazy to see how far games have come. As you can tell from my title, and if you're in any way familiar with the game, you probably have a few questions. One being, what on earth am I talking about? Am I somehow suggesting that going in guns blazing and treating it like some arcade shooter yields the most satisfying experience, while being so contrary to the whole foundational gameplay loop? Absolutely not. Please stick to the stealth route. Anything else is just masochism. What I am implying, and focusing on based on my title, is the wrong way you can play the game narratively. What I mean by this is that when choosing between the game's two possible endings, most people likely went with what is, in my opinion, the wrong or lesser ending. This may all seem a bit controversial or inflammatory, but hear me out. Yes, I'm aware that the ending I'm referring to is the canon ending that the rest of the series acknowledges, and so me calling it into question may seem a little pointless. The reason I feel this way is because the quote-unquote bad ending of the game, which is the one I got on my initial playthrough, just comes across so much stronger thematically, and better fits the tone of the game, especially if you view it only within the context of the game, putting yourself in the headspace of someone playing the game for the first time all those years ago, and ignoring the need for continuity in future installments. I personally think that this is a fair way to assess the game. When you think of movies or any kind of media with connected installments, the quality of it shouldn't necessarily be so strictly tied to what comes before or after, and should be evaluated on its own merits. So that's the perspective I'm coming from with this analysis, and hopefully that kind of clears up how my contradictory take could even have a foundation to stand on. Before I get into the two endings, I should provide some brief exposition so that they make a little bit more sense. I'm not going to do a full in-depth recounting of the plot, as it not only has been covered exhaustively by others, but also has a bit of a larger-than-life reputation of being a little complicated. The game starts with you, the player, assuming the role of a special operative, codenamed Solid Snake. Snake, as he is more commonly referred to, is tasked with infiltrating a compound off the coast of Alaska, known as Shadow Moses. This facility has been taken over by a terrorist organization known as Foxhound, who hope to access the nuclear weaponry of said facility and cause global destruction. You know, real 90s stuff. Snake comes equipped with nothing but a pack of cigarettes, like a true action hero, and any weaponry he might use later on in the game must be found by covertly exploring the facility. He also isn't entirely on his own either. He's equipped with a communication device known as a codec, where he can communicate with his superior, Colonel Roy Campbell. These moments of communication offer a lot of exposition in the game. While on the island, Snake has to avoid armed soldiers and make his way to key areas where he'll have his boss fights. These boss fights involve highly skilled members of the Foxhound terrorist group, and each one usually has a gimmick to go along with their codename. For example, we got Revolver Ocelot, who uses a revolver and can ricochet bullets a crazy amount of times before hitting you. We got Sniper Wolf, speaks for herself, a sniper, and Psycho Mantis, who uses psychic abilities to predict your moves, and if you're playing this on the original PlayStation, will read your memory card and tell you what games you've been playing. I'll never get over how cool and innovative that is, even to this day. These aren't just some super campy, over-the-top villains either, as it is revealed quite early on that Snake used to work with these guys, and they were a team together, so there is some personal history between them. At some point between the fights, Snake encounters some allies on the island that can help him on this mission, and this is the crux of the whole diverging endings situation. The first one you meet is named Meryl, and is revealed to be Colonel Campbell's niece. so there is immediately some incentive to make sure that she gets out of this mission alive. Meryl is portrayed as a bit of a novice. She has some combat experience, but is prone to making mistakes.
Careful, I'm no rookie.
Liar. That nervous glance, that scared look in your eyes. They're rookie's eyes if I ever saw them. You've never shot a person, am I right?
You talk too much.
You haven't even taken the safety off, rookie.
I told you I'm no rookie!
Through conversations with her, you learn that she wants to be a soldier and make her family proud. Unfortunately, there's not a lot else to her. The game is very much a product of its time, and as a result, Meryl is relegated to a damsel in distress kind of role.
So there's something you like about me, huh?
Yeah, you've got a great butt.
As you approach the midpoint of the game, Meryl gets into some trouble, and results in you and her getting captured. And it is after this point in which you don't really see Meryl anymore, until the end of the game. So unfortunately, her character doesn't get too much development. And as I said, she's kind of shoved aside, so the action hero can do his thing, save the day, and get the girl. Well, maybe. We'll revisit that capturing scenario shortly, but there is a second important ally that is also crucial to the two endings you get. His name is Dr. Hal Emmerich, nicknamed Otacon. He's revealed to be the designer of the MacGuffin that the whole plot and title of this game revolves around. As mentioned, this is a nuclear facility, so naturally, one would think that the terrorists hijacking it are simply going to use the various missiles and bombs it may have. But it's more than that. They are attempting to unleash a mech robot giant called Metal Gear Rex, which on its own is capable of grand destruction. Dr. Otacon is the designer of this, and he is the one that will be our inside man and help us stop it. Otacon is characterized as a bit of a coward, almost to a comedic level, with Snake playing it totally straight to make his moments of fear appear even more out of place and funnier.
Don't shoot! It's me, don't shoot! It's me, Snake!
Otacon, how'd you get here?
Well, it wasn't as dramatic as your entrance, believe me. I'm afraid of heights.
However, Otacon is very much capable of a compelling arc, even more so than Meryl. It just depends what ending you get. Revisiting the capture and subsequent torture scene, this is what determines what ending you get. If you successfully overcome the button mashing prompt and resist torture, Meryl will survive at the end, and this is considered the canonical ending. If you fail or purposefully submit to torture, Meryl will die at the end, which is considered the bad ending. And this is a consequence you won't know the ramifications of until the very end of the game. However, the outcomes are not that black and white. If Meryl lives, you still don't see her until the end of the game, and she's ultimately just the stock female character you save and ride off into the sunset with. Her role ultimately could have been filled with anyone. If she dies, however, her role in the end is replaced with Otacon, and the final sequence and conversation they have at the end of the game is oddly more fulfilling for something that's supposed to be the undesirable ending. It not only makes Otacon feel more fleshed out as an individual character, but it gives him a lot more purpose in the story, over being just the scientist guy who gets dragged into the action where his fear is used as comedic relief. At the same time, however, this turn of events makes Snake feel even more human. And this subversion of action movie tropes where the hero rides off into the sunset with a new best friend, as opposed to the damsel in distress, makes me feel like Snake grew more as a character, and actually learned something. Loss shapes anybody, no question. And if Snake simply went into the compound, stopped the bad guys, got the girl, he'd be leaving the same exact person that he came in as. There's nothing wrong with a happy ending where everyone is fine, and having people die for the sake of dying doesn't necessarily make a story better. But in this case, I feel like it makes the story stronger. Canon be damned. There's two scenes that kind of cement this point of view with me, and both happen well before you discover Meryl's fate. As I mentioned, once you and Meryl get captured, you don't really see her again. So your main ally on the island is Otacon from that point forward. And each conversation you have with him, you really get to see him grow as a character, gain confidence, and become a different person by the end of the game. The first scene involves talking to him after a large-scale helicopter battle on top of a building. He asks questions about love, and whether or not it's even possible in a place or world where fighting is so prevalent. This would seem out of place for the initial tone the game is going for, as these kinds of introspective emotional discussions are not commonplace for a tough action-filled adventure, let alone one between two guys.
Snake, there's something I've really got to ask you. It's why I followed you up this far. Have you ever loved someone?
That's what you came to ask?
No, I mean, I was wondering if even soldiers fall in love.
What are you trying to say?
I want to ask you, do you think love can bloom even on a battlefield?
Yeah, I do. I think at any time, any place, people can fall in love with each other. But if you love someone, you have to be able to protect them.
I think so too.
By this point, it is evident who each man has in mind while having this conversation. Snake is very much focused on Meryl, and Otacon has the Foxhound member, Sniper Wolf, in his heart. At first, this is played off as sort of a joke.
Sounds like Stockholm Syndrome to me.
That he's obsessed with her, and she is quite mean or indifferent towards him. But as the game progresses, you later learn how deep this admiration for her goes. This first conversation marks a moment of growth for the bond between the two, and Snake's tone also changes, from one of indifference to acceptance of Otacon's lack of combat abilities.
I have a favor to ask.
Uh-oh.
Don't worry, it'll be easy.
I told you before I don't want to hurt anyone.
I don't want you to either.
Okay.
The next scene I want to discuss happens a little later, but almost feels like a direct continuation of the previous conversation. Following a confrontation with Sniper Wolf, Snake ends up mortally wounding her. In what is arguably the most emotional death scene in the entire game, she reflects on her past and what led her to this point.
I waited for this moment. I am a sniper. Waiting is my job. Never moving a muscle. Concentrating.
Through both expository knowledge learned earlier and information implied by her, you find out she is a Kurd, a displaced group of people without a country. Feeling abandoned by the governments of the world, she took part in the terrorist group as a means of exacting revenge.
I was born on the battlefield. Raised on the battlefield. Gunfire, sirens, and screams. They were my lullabies. Hunted like dogs, day after day. Driven from our ragged shelters. That was my life. Each morning I'd wake up and find a few more of my family or friends dead beside me. I'd stare at the morning sun and pray to make it through the day. The governments of the world turned a blind eye to our misery.
She's really one of the only villains that gets any kind of tangible motivation for why she's doing what she does. That's not to discredit the rest that appear in this game, but her plight feels a bit more real and understandable than the others. Further, she even expresses regret with her choices, which adds a lot of depth.
In the name of vengeance, I sold my body and my soul. Now I am nothing more than a dog.
Otacon stumbles upon what has happened and feels nothing but sorrow. This is the woman he loved, not just from an attraction standpoint, but for some reason, he was the only one able to look past all her flaws and love her for what she truly was. He didn't think she was a bad person at all, just caught up with her rage and her choices. He saw the remorse she was capable of, even before she did. He is visibly distraught throughout this whole scene, and it ties back nicely to the previous conversation I mentioned. Rather than wanting to die slowly and painfully, she asks Snake to finish her off.
Everyone's here now. Okay, hero. Set me free.
Goodbye. Snake, you said that love could bloom on the battlefield. But I couldn't save her.
This acts as a jumping off point for Otacon's character. This is the catalyst that propels his character into completing his metamorphosis as a brand new person. And it gives him perspective that can actually be useful to Snake later on, if you get the Meryl dies ending, that is.
You can leave anytime. Get a head start on your new life.
Snake! What was she fighting for? What am I fighting for? What are you fighting for?
If we make it through this, I'll tell you.
Okay, I'll be searching too.
You see, following this emotional moment, Snake has his run-in with the last few bosses, stops the nuclear threat, fistfights his evil twin brother in a shirtless brawl on top of an unstable mech. Yeah, it's that kind of game sometimes. But ultimately, he reaches Meryl's unconscious body. As I said, if you manage to withstand the torture, then it is at this point that Meryl will wake up and be your companion for the final sequence of the game. But if you succumbed to the torture, Meryl won't wake up. Snake will have his own moment of grief, mirroring Otacon's earlier.
Forgive me. Damn! I gave in to my fear. I gave in to my pain. I sold your life to save my own. I'm a loser. I'm not the hero you thought I was. I'm nothing!
Despite being so highly trained, despite being so highly regarded, with past success on previous missions, he couldn't protect the woman he learned to care for from dying. He failed. Came up short. Remember earlier how he said he believed love was possible on a battlefield if you can protect that person? Well, this time he couldn't. This moment makes Snake seem more human. Having him come to terms with the fact that not everyone can be saved is a huge moment. He's not an invincible action hero, and there is only so much one man can do. It peels back the layers of the cigarette-smoking, wise-cracking, impenetrable persona that is Solid Snake. For the first time, he allowed himself to become emotionally vulnerable, which is not something very common at all in an action game or story, especially the ones from the 80s and 90s that this one was so clearly inspired by. From this point forward, if Meryl has died, Otacon accompanies you on the final chase sequence escaping the base. Prior to leaving, he gives you an inspirational speech. He professes the importance of moving on, and emphasizes that the love that they shared for these people was not for nothing.
Otacon.
She's gone, Snake.
Because of me.
I guess blaming yourself makes it easier, huh? If you do that, you can keep the pain at a nice, safe distance.
What the hell do you know? Meryl's dead. I lost.
So, are you gonna stay here and die? Along with her? Snake. People die. But death is not defeat. That's what Hemingway said. I lost Wolf, too. But that wasn't defeat. She and I will be together forever. We didn't lose anything.
Together forever.
It's true that Wolf is dead. But our love didn't die with her. Life's more than just a game of win or lose. Don't you think? Let's live, Snake.
And after having both him and Snake undergo great losses in such a short amount of time, it just feels right that he'd be by your side. It feels earned. That your cool guy action hero bravery could rub off on him and make him stronger and more capable by the end of the story, and that this in turn could be reciprocated by his emotional intelligence and empathy. It's a beautiful thing, really. To have Snake and Otacon have that ride into the sunset be the last thing you experience feels like the icing on the cake. The emotional journey these two went on together would have simply been wasted and left without a conclusion if it wasn't for them having this moment at the end.
Until today, I've lived only for myself. Survival has been the only thing I cared about in my life.
That's not just you. That's how everyone is.
I only felt truly alive when I was staring death in the face. I don't know. Maybe it's written into my genes.
What about now?
I want to enjoy life. I really do. How about you, Otacon?
Me? I feel like a new man.
So what are you gonna do? Continue your research?
No, I'm finished with science. I'm interested in human psychology now.
Sounds good.
The whole reason I got into science in the first place was because I was no good with people. I was scared of them. I was scared of life. I thought that I could never understand them because they're so illogical. But I finally learned how to like people. I'm not afraid anymore.
You and I are more alike than I thought.
I'm just tired of always being a spectator in life. I'm ready to live. I'm gonna stand on my own 2 feet. I'm not gonna hide anymore.
You giving up your stealth camo?
Huh? Oh yeah. You can have it. So, this is where we say goodbye to our loves as well. Want me to drive?
No thanks. I'd rather do it myself.
No problem. Where to, Snake?
My real name is David, Otacon.
I'm Hal, Dave.
Oh, that's right. Hal. Hal and Dave. That's a good one. Maybe we should take a trip to Jupiter.
So where you going, Dave?
I think it's time for me to look for a new path in life.
A new path?
A new purpose.
Will you find it?
I'll find it. I know I'll find it.
So what happens to Otacon if Meryl is the one who accompanies you at the end? He doesn't die, strangely, which is somehow even more sad. He just gets sidelined. The last thing you hear from him on the codec is that he'll find a way to get out on his own. And then, you never hear from him again. To have all that setup, all those emotional conversations, all gone to waste like that, it can't be the good ending. There's just no way. It's a disservice to both Snake's and Otacon's characters. It's just so odd to me that something so subversive and different of an ending which the game seems to be hinting at and building toward all this time, based on their prior interactions, is the one you want to avoid. You just can't have it both ways. Have all this set up and then bail last minute for a more standard ending? There's just no closure. This is not me saying that the canon ending is necessarily terrible, but it just pales in comparison. It's not even a contest, in my opinion. The lessons and themes that stem from the Snake and Otacon ending shine too strongly. So yeah, love can exist on the battlefield. It can prevail over maniacal terrorists, threats of nuclear warfare, and losing people you care deeply about. For Snake and Otacon, Dave and Hal, as you learn at the end when they reveal their names to each other, they found a deep love for each other too, an inseparable bond that made each of them stronger and better as a result of it. And that is why, to me, this ending is irreplaceable. Thank you.